5 gruesome horror stories that will make you shiver. 1. The Plague Doctor's Mask. The first time I saw the cursed Plague Doctor's mask, I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. It lay nestled amidst a dusty collection of antiques in a dimly lit old curio shop I had stumbled upon during one of my solitary strolls through the city. The mask was a grotesque masterpiece, a macabre fusion of art and suffering. Its elongated, beaked nose and hollow, obsidian eyes were framed by ornate, tarnished brass, and its surface was etched with intricate, occult symbols. It was a relic of a bygone era when plague doctors roamed the streets, shrouded in mystery, treating the afflicted with their enigmatic remedies. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with a hunchback and a raspy voice, recounted the mask's grim history as he placed it in my hands. He spoke of its supposed powers, miraculous healing abilities that could cure any ailment, but there was a catch. He warned, a terrifying cost that came with harnessing such dark forces. As he spoke, the mask seemed to whisper to me its faint, eerie murmurings like a siren's call. The allure of its power was undeniable, and I found myself captivated by the possibility of wielding such miraculous abilities. Against my better judgment, I purchased the mask, its cold, lifeless surface chilling my fingertips as I cradled it in my hands. The moment it touched my face, I felt a surge of otherworldly energy coursing through me. It was as if a dark force had awakened within, a malevolent presence that promised power beyond imagination. For a time, the mask delivered on its promise. I could heal the sick and wounded with a mere touch, their ailments vanishing as if they had never existed. People hailed me as a miracle worker, and I reveled in the adulation and praise. But the cost soon became apparent. The mask demanded payment in the form of blood, a sinister toll that grew with each use of its powers. The more I healed, the more insatiable its hunger for blood became, and soon I found myself unable to resist its dark cravings. My nights were consumed by fevered dreams of torment and suffering. I would awaken to find myself in the darkest corners of the city, surrounded by the mangled bodies of those I had once healed. The mask reveled in the bloodshed, its influence over me growing stronger with every act of violence. I became a monster, a slave to the cursed mask's power. It whispered to me, urging me to commit unspeakable acts of cruelty and depravity. The lines between healer and tormentor blurred, and I descended further into madness with each passing day. As my reign of terror grew, so did the desperation of those who sought to stop me. A group of brave individuals, determined to end the curse, tracked me down to my lair, an abandoned asylum that had become a nightmarish chamber of horrors. In a final, brutal confrontation, they managed to pry the mask from my face. As the cold metal was torn away, I felt a searing pain, unlike anything I had ever experienced. The mask fought back, its grip on my soul refusing to let go. But with a Herculean effort, I tore free from its influence, and the mask fell to the ground with a deafening clang. The cursed relic lay dormant once more, its dark powers contained, but its legacy of suffering and bloodshed could never be erased. I was left with the haunting memories of the horrors I had inflicted, and the knowledge that the cursed Plague Doctor's mask was a malevolent force that should have never been unleashed upon the world. To this day, the mask remains hidden away, locked within an impenetrable chest, its whisper silenced but its dark influence forever etched in my nightmares. A chilling reminder of the terrifying cost of wielding power beyond comprehension. 2. The Sleepless Town. The first inkling of the impending horror came to me on a sleepless night in our quaint little town. It was a place where everyone knew each other's names, and the streets were so quiet at night that the sound of a single car passing by was enough to wake the entire neighborhood. But that night, there was a restlessness in the air, an unspoken unease that permeated every corner of our lives. It began with whispers, murmurs of people complaining about insomnia. A common ailment, they thought. They would gather in small groups at a local diner or chat over picket fences, sharing their sleepless nights and the bizarre dreams that plagued them when they did manage to drift off. At first, I dismissed it as typical small-town chatter, the kind of idle talk that thrived in close-knit communities. But as the days turned into weeks, it became apparent that something sinister was taking root in our town. Sleeplessness was contagious, spreading like wildfire from person to person. Soon it felt as though the entire town was ensnared in its grip. Neighbors roamed the streets at all hours, their eyes bloodshot and their faces etched with exhaustion. The once quiet nights were filled with the disconcerting sight of people wandering aimlessly, their haunted expressions reflecting the torment within. I, too, fell victim to the relentless insomnia. Nights became an endless cycle of tossing and turning, my mind trapped in a waking nightmare of bizarre and unsettling dreams. I would see faces from my past, long-forgotten memories and surreal landscapes that blurred the line between reality and imagination. As the sleep deprivation took its toll, the dreams began to seep into my waking life. I would catch glimpses of figures that didn't belong, lurking at the edges of my vision. A face in the window, a silhouette in the corner of the room. They were elusive, like phantoms, and when I tried to confront them, they would vanish, leaving me in a state of dread. The townsfolk's experiences mirrored my own. They spoke of seeing spectral figures in the mirrors, hearing voices in empty rooms, and witnessing impossible occurrences that defied explanation. It was as though the town itself had become a twisted, waking nightmare. Desperation took hold, and we sought answers from medical experts and psychiatrists, but their diagnoses offered no solace. There was no physical ailment or mental disorder to blame. It was as though an unseen force had woven a tapestry of terror that ensnared our minds. The hallucinations grew more vivid and menacing. Shadows danced on the walls, whispering secrets and promises of release from the torment. Some of our neighbors succumbed to the visions, disappearing into the night, never to return. Others barricaded themselves in their homes, driven to madness by the relentless insomnia. As the weeks turned into months, the once close community fractured into a collection of isolated, sleep-deprived souls. There was no escape from the waking nightmare, no respite from the ceaseless torment. I couldn't bear it any longer. The sleepless nights and haunting dreams had taken their toll on my sanity. I decided to leave the town in search of answers, to find a way to break the curse that held us in its grip. As I drove away, I looked back at the once familiar streets, now shrouded in darkness and despair. The sleepless town had become a living nightmare, a place where dreams and reality had become indistinguishable, and the line between sanity and madness had been irrevocably blurred. To this day, I carry the scars of that harrowing experience with me, haunted by the memory of a town that fell victim to a collective insomnia, a nightmare from which there was no awakening, a place where dreams turned to horrors, and the night held a darkness that would forever haunt our souls. 3. The Vanishing Town. The first time I heard of the Vanishing Town was in a dimly lit bar in a remote corner of the state. It was a story whispered in hushed tones, a tale that had been passed down through generations, a town that disappeared and reappeared like a ghost, bringing with it unspeakable horrors. As a journalist with a penchant for the unexplained, I couldn't resist the allure of such a mystery. With a notebook in hand and a camera at the ready, I set out on a journey that would take me deep into the heart of darkness. The town was known simply as Dunhaven, and its legend had captured the imaginations of those who dared to delve into the unknown. It was said to exist in a remote, wooded valley, accessible only by a winding, treacherous road that seemed to defy the laws of geography. But what made Dunhaven truly peculiar was its annual disappearance. Every year on the eve of the winter solstice, the town would vanish without a trace, leaving behind an eerie silence in its wake. The residents would evacuate, retreating to the surrounding villages until the town's reappearance months later. It was a bizarre ritual that had baffled outsiders for generations. I arrived in Dunhaven on the eve of its annual vanishing act. The townsfolk were cordial but guarded, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. They explained that the disappearance was a time-honored tradition, a pact with a malevolent force that had haunted their ancestors. As the last rays of daylight faded on the solstice eve, I positioned myself on the outskirts of town, determined to document the phenomenon. As the clock struck midnight, a deep, bone-chilling mist began to envelop Dunhaven, swallowing it whole. It was as though the town was being devoured by the very darkness itself. I watched in awe and terror as the buildings, the streets, and the people disappeared into the inky void, leaving behind nothing but an empty, fog-shrouded valley. It was a sight that defied logic and reason, a surreal spectacle that sent shivers down my spine. With Dunhaven gone, I ventured into the surrounding woods, guided only by the soft glow of moonlight. I stumbled upon an ancient, overgrown cemetery hidden deep within the forest. The gravestones bore the names of those who had lived and died in Dunhaven, their lives seemingly bound to the town's sinister fate. As the months passed, I became obsessed with unraveling the town's mysteries. I interviewed the few brave souls who would speak of the horrors they had witnessed during the annual disappearance. Strange, otherworldly beings that lurked in the darkness, whispering malevolent secrets and demanding unspeakable sacrifices. I couldn't shake the feeling that Dunhaven's curse was tied to a dark and ancient ritual, one that required the town's residents to appease a malevolent force in exchange for their safety during the rest of the year. The townsfolk had grown resigned to their fate, viewing the annual disappearance as a necessary evil to protect their loved ones. As the winter solstice approached once more, I knew I had to confront the dark forces that held Dunhaven in their thrall. Armed with knowledge and determination, I joined a group of brave residents who had secretly plotted to break the curse. On the fateful night of the disappearance, we gathered at the town center, armed with ancient incantations and protective charms. As the mist descended, we chanted in unison, invoking forces beyond our comprehension. The very ground trembled beneath our feet as we confronted the malevolent presence that had haunted Dunhaven for centuries. It was a battle of wills, a clash of ancient powers, and the outcome hung in the balance. In a blinding flash of light and a deafening roar, the forces that had held Dunhaven captive were banished. The town reappeared, its buildings and streets intact, its residents unharmed. The curse had been broken and the townsfolk were free from the annual ritual of terror. As a journalist, I had unraveled the dark secrets of Dunhaven, but at a tremendous cost. The experience had left me haunted, forever changed by the horrors I had witnessed. I left the town behind, its enigmatic past and newfound freedom a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to confront even the darkest of forces. Dunhaven, once a place of fear and despair, had emerged from the shadows, its residents no longer bound by the malevolent pact that had held them captive. The vanishing town was a mystery no more, but its legacy of darkness would linger in the hearts and minds of those who had dared to confront the unknown. A reminder that some mysteries are best left unsolved, some secrets best left buried in the depths of the past. 4. The Carnival of Nightmares. The sun had set, and the night sky was draped in an inky blackness as my friends and I ventured to the outskirts of town to visit the fabled Carnival of Nightmares. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones, a carnival that only appeared once every few years, luring thrill seekers with promises of spine-tingling terror. The carnival grounds were a chilling sight. The faded, weather-worn tents and rusted rides stood in stark contrast to the garish, flickering lights that cast eerie shadows across the deserted park. It was as though the very air was charged with an unsettling energy, a sense that something sinister lurked just beyond the carnival's gaudy facade. As we ventured deeper into the carnival, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Sinister clowns with leering grins and grotesque masks leaped from the shadows, their maniacal laughter echoing in the darkness. The air was heavy with the acrid scent of cotton candy and the faintest hint of something more sinister lurking beneath. We decided to test our courage by stepping into the Tunnel of Nightmares, a dilapidated ride that promised a journey into the heart of terror. As we boarded the creaky, rust-covered carts, a feeling of unease settled over us. The tunnel was shrouded in impenetrable darkness, broken only by flashes of disorienting, strobe-like lights. The ride began with a jolt, and immediately I felt a sense of foreboding wash over me. The tunnel was a disorienting maze of grotesque sights and disturbing sounds. Phantasmal figures lunged from the shadows, their ghastly forms reaching out to touch us as we passed. It was as though our deepest fears had been plucked from our minds and manifested before our eyes. The sensation was overwhelming, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as the ride took us deeper into the nightmarish labyrinth. The air grew colder, and a suffocating dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I knew that there was no turning back, that we were trapped in a surreal nightmare. As we neared the ride's climax, the darkness seemed to coalesce into a malevolent force, a palpable evil that pressed in on all sides. I could hear my friends screaming, their voices a chorus of terror, but it was as though we were all trapped in our own private hells. And then it happened. The ride abruptly halted, plunging us into a blackness so profound it felt as though it would consume us. The air was thick with a sickening metallic stench, and I could hear the agonized cries of my friends, their voices distorted and distant. When the lights flickered back to life, I was alone. The ride was empty, the cart surrounding me devoid of life. Panic coursed through me as I stumbled from the ride, searching desperately for any sign of my friends. But they were gone, vanished into the nightmarish carnival, leaving me utterly alone. I wandered through the deserted carnival, my fear and confusion mounting with each passing moment. The once familiar sights had transformed into grotesque parodies of themselves, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the carnival itself was alive and malevolent. As the hours stretched into what felt like an eternity, I encountered other lost souls who had also become ensnared in this nightmarish realm. They spoke of encountering their deepest fears, of being pursued by unspeakable horrors that defied explanation. Together, we tried to navigate the carnival's nightmarish landscape, searching for an escape from this waking nightmare. But the carnival seemed to shift and twist, its layout constantly changing, trapping us in an endless maze of terror. I knew then that the Carnival of Nightmares was not simply a place of entertainment. It was a malevolent force, a living nightmare that fed on our fears and tormented us for its own sadistic pleasure. Days turned into nights, and the line between reality and illusion blurred. I could no longer distinguish between the horrors I had witnessed and the nightmares that haunted my dreams. The carnival had become my prison, a nightmarish purgatory from which there was no escape. And so, I remained trapped in this accursed carnival, my sanity slipping away as I confront my deepest fears each night, only to awaken in a new, twisted reality each day. The Carnival of Nightmares has become my eternal torment, a testament to the relentless power of fear and the horrors that lurk in the darkest recesses of our minds, a place where nightmares are born and never end. 5. The Unseen Intruder. My world had always been one of darkness. I was blind from birth, navigating life guided by the loyal presence of my guide dog, Luna. Together, we had forged a bond of trust that was unbreakable, a connection that allowed me to navigate the world with confidence. But one fateful night, that trust was shattered, and my world descended into a chilling nightmare. It began as a subtle unease, a feeling that something was amiss. Luna, my ever-faithful companion, had become agitated, her fur bristling and her usually calm demeanor replaced by nervous restlessness. Her soft whimpers and low growls filled the air, conveying a sense of dread that I couldn't ignore. I sat in the comfort of my living room, my fingers tracing the pages of a braille book, when Luna's behavior escalated. She stood abruptly, her body tense, and her eyes fixed on an empty corner of the room. Her warning growls grew louder, filled with a primal fear that sent a shiver down my spine. "Easy, Luna," I whispered, my voice trembling. I reached out, trying to calm her, but my hand encountered nothing but empty air. The presence in the room was palpable, a malevolent force that seemed to radiate darkness. Luna's behavior was a stark contradiction to her usual calm and reassuring demeanor. It was as though she sensed something that I, in my blindness, could not. I called out for my husband, desperately hoping he would return from the kitchen. but there was no response. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft, eerie whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, and I strained my ears, trying to decipher the words. They were unintelligible, a haunting symphony of disembodied voices that sent a chill down my spine. I reached for my phone, intent on calling for help, but my trembling fingers found nothing but empty air where it should have been. Luna's warnings escalated further. She barked, a sharp, frenzied sound that reverberated through the room. It was as though she was trying to protect me from an unseen threat, a menace that lurked just beyond my perception. Fear gripped me, and I rose from my chair, stumbling blindly in the direction of Luna's frantic barking. My hands encountered furniture and walls, and I followed her desperate guidance as though my life depended on it. The room seemed to close in around me, the air growing colder, the whispers more menacing. Luna's barks turned to frenetic whines, and I knew she was trying to lead me to safety. Suddenly, an unseen force struck me, sending me sprawling to the ground. Pain seared through my body, and I cried out in agony, my world spinning into darkness. When I awoke, I was alone, my home shrouded in an eerie silence. Luna was gone, her absence a heart-wrenching void in my world. My husband was nowhere to be found, and the whispers had ceased. I was trapped in a world of endless darkness, haunted by the memory of the night and the malevolent presence that had shattered my sense of security. Luna had sensed it, tried to protect me from it, but it had taken her from me, leaving me alone in a world where I could no longer trust my own senses. I would never forget the night I was terrorized by an unseen intruder, a presence that only my guide dog had sensed, a force that had forever shattered my perception of the world. Which story caught your attention the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out my website in the description below to see what I'm writing. And just below there are some suggestions related to what we talked about today. Peace.